Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel ran entirely by Dr. Pepper and Autistic Thoughts. Today I'm going to be reading you a few stories from our /maliciouscompliance, where we're just doing what we're told, but we get the most satisfying wins over our bosses. Now if you enjoy, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below, or else the algorithm will give me a big ol' spanking, and I do not want mine behind a little spanking. So let's get started, shall we? Just complying with your written expectations and directions, boss. So I was replying to another post and realized I have a malicious compliance story here that should be shared on this sub. I was working at an IT help desk at a large hospital quite some time ago. We were expected to be at our desks, logged in, ready to take our first call by the start time of our shift. It took about 10 to 15 minutes to log in, load up, and log into 7 different programs, all with different passwords, so really you needed to be there 15 minutes early. They were shared computers, and sometimes you could get away with just locking it and leaving everything logged in and running until your next shift. But if someone else restarts in the meantime, you had to log in to do everything again. It was a constant pain point for us that was frequently raised, especially as an example, when medical staff needed to scrub up and scrub down. This is all during their shift time. My manager sends a somewhat passive-aggressive email to them.
Hi all, it seems like we're still having lots of issues around our shift times. I want to clarify my expectations. If you're on a 7 AM to 4 PM shift, I expect you to be here, logged in, ready to go, and your status on the phone queue as available or on a call at 6:59 AM. If you want to make a coffee, fill your water bottle, or put your lunch in the fridge, this needs to all be done before 7 AM, not after. At the end of the shift, I expect you to be available or on a call until 4:01 PM. Only then may you log out and wash your coffee cup, etc. If you're going to be stuck in traffic, have trouble finding parking, or miss your bus, you'll need to manage your time better and leave earlier. Thanks!
So for a while I comply and I'm always available or on a call at exactly 1 second before my start time, just waiting for my moment. And then it happens. I get a call with a splash less than 2 minutes left on my shift and take the call. I get about as far as the name, where they are, and halfway through them describing their issue, I see the clock hit 1 second over my shift time. I say, I am so sorry to interrupt you, but my shift is over. Goodbye. Hang up, log off, and go home. Of course, they did complain, and my manager pulls me into his office, asking me to explain why I did what I did. I explained. Well, I was available on the phone until about 2 minutes before the end of my shift time. I answered the call, putting my status to on a call until 1 second past my shift time. So I logged off. They replied,
No, if you're on a call, you need to finish that call first.
To which I reply, your email says we are expected to be available or on a call 1 second before our shift time, which I have been. It also says we are expected to be available or on a call until 1 second past our shift time, and only then may we log off. I am simply following your expectations and written directions. Of course, this was a very career-limiting move, but at this point I already had my foot halfway out the door, so whatever. It will never cease to amaze me that there's so many places that somehow expect getting the necessary equipment for work not in the work time. It's just wild. Honestly, in 99% of those places, it's honestly just flat out wage theft. I'm gonna be real. They should be reported, I'm just saying. Anyway, on to the next story. You don't want me to do the work myself? Okay, then run and do it yourself. This happened about a year ago, but I just found this sub and realized I had a story to share. It's not that extreme though. I worked at a buffet restaurant, and every shift, each staff was assigned one job. These being usually cashier, runner, person who goes and picks up the food when ready, the person who changes the food around table, managing, cleaning, washing dishes, and etc. I was usually the runner because I was faster than everyone else, and we needed to walk a long way to the kitchen to pick up food and come back. And we had to do it in 3 minutes, or else our leader would call the kitchen and ask where we were. There's a counter between the kitchen and the corridor that you pass through with the cart. Usually you go in, ask for the food, they'll put it on the counter in a few seconds to a minute. You put it on the cart and then you can go back to the restaurant, but sometimes they'll be understaffed, and if we're on need of something simple like sauces, green onions, or jam, we usually just get inside the kitchen and grab it ourselves. This is not a rule, it's just something that happens sometimes if we're really busy. In that case, we were in need of some sauces, 1 or 2 food items, and green onions. I knew where all the sauces and green onions were, so after asking for them and waiting a bit more for a minute, I shouted, "Coming in, grabbing green onions," and went into the kitchen. As I was pouring pre-cut green onions on a bowl, one of the chefs walked in my direction, screaming for me to leave the food, and that was not my job, and that I was doing it wrong. By the way, I was not. I asked him why, because we've been doing that for years at this point, and he said that it's his job to do, and I'm only supposed to ask and wait. So the next time I needed something, I entered the kitchen, and as the chef was prepping something else, I started screaming, "Sauce 1, sauce 2, green onions, honey, this, that, this, also something else," until I finished the full list, which were all mostly things I knew where they were, and could have grabbed it during the time I was screaming those names and waiting. The chef didn't say anything for a few seconds, so I screamed all of it again, and on the 3rd time, while he was grabbing one of the sauces and placing it on the counter, he said, "It's just me here, stop screaming and just put the paper there and wait." I responded that I have to go back to the restaurant in 3 minutes or else they called to check on what I'm doing, and I would have to say that he was taking too long to bring me the stuff. So he said, "Okay, just get in here and grab it." And I reminded him that he told me the other day that I was not supposed to touch anything because that was not my job. But I guess he changed his mind, because he said, "Forget it, just do it." But I reminded him again that he made it official that I can't do that. So I would have to contact the leader to make sure that I was allowed to, and the chef had to run around the kitchen for a few minutes to grab everything I needed, and he never complained about us being inside the kitchen afterwards. Honestly, oh god. I remember back in my day when it was incorrectly acceptable for chefs to scream at people. Thankfully, properly managed places nowadays don't allow that abuse. Yeah, that chef sounded like an asshole. Jesus Christ. Anyway, on to the next story. IT told me I didn't understand the systems, so I stopped fixing them. And then the store learned what I actually did. So starting with some backstory, I won't bore you with the tech jargon, so I'll just keep it simple. I worked at a gas station as a manager. They sort of trapped me in it. I was the guy you called when a store accessed state lines was short-staffed or if they needed help with paperwork and or training employees. I was a staff lead on the track to go to the IT department until the company bought them out. I was at the time basically an assistant manager without handling money. That was until the promotion. The store was in the red and they saw how I turned one store around when there was no manager, and the district manager handled the money, so they moved me to this new store and just preached about the benefits. I took it, and from there, all this is how it happened. I am by no means some genius, but I have been developing things for Linux in my own time for myself. I had a side job where I repaired computers, and sometimes I built a whole computer from the parts people order. I'm smart, but I would not classify myself as a senior. That's a word I cannot pronounce for the life of me, dear Lord Almighty. But definitely not a beginner. And I document everything, important for later. Now to the story. Becoming an unofficial IT. So I had gotten into the routine of things, paperwork, safe, bank schedules, and started some weeks in the black. Some in the red before finally getting all in the black. Consistently. It took a couple of years, by the way. Well, the issue that made this malicious compliance happen was the equipment. gas pumps, the servers, the register, the office computer. All of it was not extremely old, but it was showing its age. We had to defrag the office computer a couple of times and the card reader would go down. The server would say, "Not today!" Registers would need us to call because an update broke something. Pumps were having BIOS errors and so many more issues. At the head of all of that is what they called the commander. It basically controlled every single device in the store. Well, when things would break, we had to make an IT ticket. They chose based on who had it worse. 2 guys, 30 stores, it would be weeks before they would come out at times. I did not like that, so I fixed them myself. Granted, they have insurance and many other things to worry about, but their efficiency was ass. The server's down, I fixed it. The office computer was down, I fixed it. Registers giving errors, I fixed it. Any problems that arose, I fixed it. Soda machine down, I fixed it. The most common one was the card readers. They were always on, so I had to be reset most of the time. You could also just not swap them, something I found out trying because I found the real error that day was the register not talking to IT. I never took these things apart. They were all band-aid fixes against the real issues. Well, one day they called me to train a new manager for a different store. My DM would handle my store while I did this. Why did my DM not train them? Because there were a few DMs and it was not her area. So to preserve the proper chain of command, they saw this as the better option, as there were new stores that were bought out by us. They needed to learn the new structure, and I did not care. It was a change of pace. Seeing the same walls for 70 hours a week does get tiring. While I was there, I get a call, and another, and another, and another, and they asked me if I knew something was down. Card readers, registers, and the pumps were not working. I knew the issue. You see, when those 3 are out at the same time, it's always the commander. If it freezes up, the whole system will not allow transactions with cards. I explained it, they did what I said, which was to just reset it, and it was working again. Fast forward 2 weeks, and the head of IT and maintenance emailed me. They said that from now on, I had to put in the form to get things fixed. I of course emailed them back that if I do and they do not come out soon enough, the store will lose money. They said, and I kid you not, "You don't understand how complex these systems are. Any fix you could do could damage them." That last comment irked me a bit. I did not understand them? The guy has been fixing things and pleading for updated systems for months. Does not understand them. Okay, fine. I told them I would comply. After that, every time a card reader is down, send a form to IT. Every time a register is down, send the form to IT. Soda machine down? Send a form to maintenance. They piled up very quickly, and to the point where they were fixing more than one issue when they came to my store. My DM asked why I stopped. I explained. She was pissed, but she could not tell me to fix it since the one in charge of the 2 departments was above her. Now for the review. After about 4 months of this, we had a manager's meeting where we all get a review, basically corporate telling us what we're doing wrong and if you get a raise. They said my performance was bad, that I let the store get as bad as it was, and that I needed to change a few key points. I stopped them right there, and I had come prepared because I was always the one to document everything. When I say everything, I mean I am obsessed with documentation. I gave them the correlations of me fixing the equipment and sales going up. I gave them the notes I had jotted down about when machines went down. I explained why my paperwork was late because I had to wait for the system to even work for 5 minutes to even email it off. I showed them the email of me being told to send forms and that my sales were dropping since then. I told them they can't give me a bad review for complying with what I was asked to do. This is when the DM chimed in and explained that I was originally supposed to be on the fast track to working IT, but after the company was recently bought out because they kept buying more gas stations, they went into the red. I was removed from that track since the new company had their much larger IT staff. They had not been bought in yet as it was a recent buyout and the full change would take a while. And now for the aftermath. Well, they had to hold meetings after that, and they had to talk about my review, about why I was dropped from the IT track, and about the current situation with the buyout. Well, unfortunately, around this time, my body was failing me. Working 70 plus hours with a bad back, bad knees, and a few other issues do not agree with so much standing. I could not stand for long, and I even blacked out at work. I had to quit. I did write down in a notebook, because typing was risky if they could access it and not have it, instructions on all the equipment and how I fixed things, error codes, what certain situations looked like, and what they most likely meant, and so on. IT was a masterpiece of documentation, and I put my 2 weeks in. I left, and a few days later, I get called about the notebook. I told them where it is. They used it, and all seemed good. I heard from the grapevine that after the new company got to my old store and saw how I used to do things, they found my notebook, and the new owner heard about the whole thing. He was upset because he said talent that is learned through the trenches is valuable, but they ended up replacing the equipment sometime after I left. I heard it cost them thousands, not damaging money, but enough for a pocket to feel lighter. Now, I work from home. I still develop Linux tools and have made some public. I started writing and have worked with content creators. I don't make as much as I did there, but it is peaceful, and I don't have to worry about an outdated system fighting me every single day. Moral of the story is, don't blame the guy trying to keep the ship floating. So, that is the end of today's video. If you all enjoyed today's stories, remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, or I will rip your balls off. And if you don't have a pair of balls, gals, I will make you have a pair, and then rip them off. See you next time. Bye-bye.